my computer. And then, okay, just share a screen. And if everyone could tell me when they see it.
Yep, all good?
Yeah. All good. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the first, here's Andre, meeting of the SingularityNet Archive Working Group. And we start our meetings with a project board. I'll just give a quick overview. Andre, Miro, this is the core team who are here. Felix is just coming, so I'm just pressing lots of buttons here. Sorry. And we will capture the other attendees from the Read AI list or from a screenshot of the other attendees. We'll document that here as well. Okay, so if Vanessa, maybe you could paste a link to the project board into chat as well. But I'll give a quick overview. Okay, so first of all, we're going to have an introduction to why archive from Vanessa for a few minutes, and then I'll go on to the project board and run through that for about up to 60 minutes. And then we'll have a hands-on session by Vanessa for the remainder of the meeting, which is another 60 minutes. So should I pass it over to you, Vanessa?
All right, I'm going to keep it really brief, and also just to say that since this is the first meeting, our practical session is probably not going to be an hour, but there's space for it to be as we get bigger and more engaged. But yeah, just a really quick one on why archiving. I think probably anyone who's here probably already thinks this anyway, but it's really important that we keep some sort of a record of what we've done in the whole SingularityNet project. It's our history, you know, and at some point in the future, it might be something that historians or anybody else might be able to look back at, but it also is important for us to have ownership of it as a community and to decide what we record and how we record. It can be quite community building as well. So yeah, that's kind of all I really need to say at this stage. But if anybody's got any questions or things they want to say about why archive, I'd love to hear. All right, let's crack on then. Let's get through the board.
Okay, and if you could keep notes on any of the issues like that. Yeah. Okay, I'll just quickly run through how I'm going to go through the section. So first of all, we'll welcome everyone here, and I'm going to give this meeting introduction. So I've given an overview of the structure of the meetings, and we want these meetings to be working meetings, but obviously this first meeting will be demonstrative, and it's going to be like a work in progress. If you want to become actively involved, we are asking people to set up a GitHub or a GitBook account. So if there's any request for that, put that in chat or on our Discord channel to request a GitHub account or access to the GitBook account. I think a lot of the ambassadors are already on GitBook, but not necessarily on GitHub. And we can sort of guide people to how to do that, if we get in contact with us. And now I'm going to move on to opening up the project board for this task here. And this first issue is the meeting issue. So that gives a demonstration of everything we do is recorded through issues or GitHub issues, which I'll just give a quick run through. That's so that we can assign people to the tasks and have a status associated with them. And the statuses are to do, in progress, and done. And we can also then assign a due date and a start date, and we can assign labels which allow us to categorize who in the work group is working on what. So this is like a general archive meetings one. And finally, we have a budget category. So this one is coming from the archive work group budget, but there's also an ambassador budget as well, which is for so to avoid any double dipping. So the first issue is I'm ordering this by due date, by the way. So I'm just doing that in that order. So the first issue is the proposal for the archive work group, which has already, I'll just run through what's been done quickly. The draft proposal was mentioned at Treasury Guild. It was then presented and discussed at the incubation workshop, and the draft proposal was approved at Treasury Guild on the 11th of May. So we still have a final version that we need to archive with the budget. The budget is linked in the document. And going forward, we tend to update the budget from GitHub data. So any questions, or if I just hand discussion over to anyone who has any questions on this? If not, we will proceed with the final version to archive and just continue to do that there. Okay, moving on to the next one is the GitHub email invites. This is taking a while to load, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry, GitBook email invites. I mean, Vanessa, you're a member of the GitBook account, aren't you? On Singularity now. Okay. Andre and Mira, are you members?
I think, let me have a look.
On Singularity Net, I think I'm not.
Okay, so we need to add the core team members to SNET GitBook account, and that will go through. So an invite needs to be sent.
So shall I record an action item for you to do that then, Stephen, or are you doing it? You're doing it. It's all right.
I'm doing it now, yeah. But I mean, I'll come back to that. So yeah, that creates an action item, and I can do that. I can assign it to myself, like that. Okay. So there you go. That's now assigned. So I'll do that. Move on. Okay, the next item is guidance note for meeting facilitators, and this is assigned to Vanessa, and the subject is what do meeting facilitators need to document. So if I pass that over to you, Vanessa.
Yeah, I mean, as you can see on the issue itself, I've got a rough draft list of what we think, but what I want to do next week is try and get to kind of all meetings and ask if I can just have like 3 to 5 minutes just to raise this issue, or I might maybe approach people who run meetings and who are kind of leads on work groups in Discord or something, or DM them, and just kind of get a sense of what they're doing in terms of their documentation. I mean, we can see it to an extent from what we're getting from people, but it'd be nice to have some input on what people feel that they need, and then, you know, what they are collecting. And maybe we can come up with a list that is essentials and nice to have, or maybe applicable in some cases, but not in others. So yeah, it's just a starting point to try and get us a little bit more together about making sure that the archive group gets the necessary information, and making sure that our process reflects the differences in the different groups and how they're doing it. So that's all really.
Okay, are any questions or feedback? Anyone would like to on that?
Sounds good.
I'll put that as an action item, Vanessa.
Yeah, sure.
To attend.
I mean, can I just ask, while people are here, you can see the list that I've got as a draft. Does that feel like a lot for a facilitator to collect, or manageable, or?
Well, I kind of feel there's some overlaps, like, for example, link shared in chat should be included in the read AI output.
That's true. Yeah, that is true. Good point.
And besides that,
Can you
Mhm.
scroll up a little bit to see the whole
Yeah,
list?
sorry, I'm taking notes as
No
well.
worries.
Yeah, I'll scroll up if someone could take over the notes there.
If you follow the link in the chat, Fly, as well, you can actually open it yourself. And
I'll go back to the notes, but there you go, Fly. You should be able to see it now.
It's sweet. Thank you.
Do you want to run through that quickly, Vanessa, or?
I don't know, can everyone can read.
Yeah. Okay, well,
I mean, I think people will get more of a sense of this when we actually start archiving, and you can see how it works and how useful or not those things are. But yeah, we'll put it as pending. And yeah, I'll try and get to everybody. I mean, one thing that I should raise at this point actually is that I'm not sure who leads all the groups. So if I was going to DM people, I wouldn't necessarily know. So if anybody can, how can I get that information? Any thoughts?
Let's go over it, right? I mean,
Sorry, say
it
again.
might take a minute or two, but we can simply go over the list of meetings, I guess.
Yeah, we could do that now if you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Should I take notes on that, or
Yeah,
actually,
please.
I can cheat a little bit by opening up a work group, or go through a typical week, which is the next item.
Okay.
And that may give us a list of, I hope, okay, let's go to the last week. Okay, we have Education Guild. I'll write this down and I can put this. That's the fries, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then broadcast ideation.
That's a quick between Cran and I.
Okay. It's Cran and Fly. Then we have Tommy's coming. The supervisory council was a one-off, I think. The governance work group is hosted by Felix.
Yeah. let's say for now, yes.
He may try and wriggle out of it, but I think it is. Let's scroll down.
You also have the ambassadors. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the ambassador town hall is hosted by Peter. Process.
Well, there's one right before that, as Fly pointed out, which
Ambassador work group.
I think will be returning one on the weekly.
The ambassador work group. And who's that hosted by? Peter?
I think TiVo initiated it, but I think it's kind of, there's no one leading it actually, but it was initiated by TiVo.
Okay. I'll just put initiated by TiVo. And we can come back to that. Process Guild is TiVo. Okay. Incubation workshop is Cran and Fly, yeah?
Yeah.
A small note, we did start 2 weeks ago with a half an hour open kind of session for randomly, well, chilling a little bit before the town hall. I'm not sure if that should be included on this, but
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. I think probably not, because that's kind of like a party, isn't it? It's not.
Probably not.
Yeah.
no,
Party.
it might lead to items getting flagged. But yeah, I'll just simply include that in the town hall output.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be really sad if we archive our parties, so or maybe it wouldn't. Process Guild, okay, we've done that. Incubation workshop we've just mentioned. Then we have Strategy Guild, which is hosted by Tommy. Is it?
Yeah.
Is that right, or is that?
Yeah.
And oh wait, process modeling is after that. Okay, got it.
Okay, that's Tommy, and then process modeling is TiVo. So we have all the list here, Vanessa. Actually, if you go for these names.
Sure, I've just added it anyway. So
yeah, and then we have Treasury Guild, which is TiVo. It doesn't say that here, but that's TiVo as well. Writers meeting. I think that was. There's also a writers work group, which is Kenichi. And then the deep funding town hall is not ambassadors, but we sometimes document it, and that's hosted by Jan. Can't remember his second name now. Is it?
No, actually, that's a tricky thing because it's a collab between. But the initial proposal was by Swarm, I would say.
Yeah, I think we
Is
made
that-
it. Yeah. Go
But
on,
yeah, you
Felix.
can set But yeah, no, it's maybe good to set Jan there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just included, and I mean, our feedback is welcome on this. We just include it because it is often relevant to what the ambassadors do as well. But you know, we will welcome people's feedback on whether we should be archiving that or not. And then the video work group is
Roho
Roho
and Kenichi.
and Kenichi is the writers work group.
And
There
then there's
was go on.
there's an AI sandbox session.
Yeah, that's missing.
Yeah.
I think it's every 2 weeks. That's why it's not here. So there's an
Yeah.
AI sandbox every 2 weeks, which is Fly and Felix. And is it correct to say, Fly, there's a marketing work group every 2 weeks,
Yeah, there's a marketing guild meeting every 2 weeks.
which is hosted by you and
Grandano
Pradana?
and I, we alternate.
Okay. Have you got all that, Vanessa?
I have indeed.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go back to that. There. Okay, so that's been now recorded. So we now have a list of the meetings and who hosts them, so which can help Vanessa catch up and talk to those work groups about meeting facilitation. And shall I move on now?
Yeah.
Okay, we now have, the way we're working on this is that we have on actual archiving is we divided it into two following a pre-meeting last week, and I'm working on a backlog, and Vanessa and the rest of the team are working on going forward. The May is included in the backlog, and this is the standard format is I'm just tracking weeks here that have been archived, and underneath here I'm building these queries which will when these queries are run, they will return the number of commits being done on this week and by whom, and that will give us some quantitative data on who's doing work or not. So, for example, all these commits are by me, and there's 150 commits to date in May. You know, that's the amount of work done to this date of this query. Each one of these will link to what has been archived. And let me just have a look. I'm not sure if this is a good opportunity to maybe run through the format here, Vanessa, or shall we leave that?
Let's leave it while the second half.
Okay. Okay. I'll leave that to second half. Okay, so if there's, I mean, really it's just to report what's been done. There's also a milestone there. So these issues will just record what's been done. So if anyone has any comments on the particular content there, I can add that here. But we will be discussing the layout later on. Okay. I'll move on from that. And the same for April. April is open because the first week of April is not completed yet. So, and once that's completed, this issue will close, and that will be a record of what's been archived. Now the next issue is the governance GitBook. Now this has some crossover with the governance work group, which is hosted by Felix. And this issue will just track work that we do to support the archiving of Felix's framework document and any material that he wants archiving. What we agreed, or what we think we agreed at the last meeting, so correct me if I'm wrong, Felix, is that we would proofread version 1 of the governance framework document, then archive that in the GitBook. We would collate version 1 comments and then review them and amend the document as required, and then archive version 1 comments and then produce a 2-page concise version of the document.
I think this has sort of changed after the governance meeting yesterday. I think it's the same stuff, but it's kind of in a slightly different way.
Okay, go
on. Okay, so we do need to close the current version to comments, in my opinion, if we're going to archive it. So at the moment, it's still open for comments, and I would say it needs to be closed. I don't know what you think, Felix. But then what we agreed to do is to find some way of outputting it so that we've got it with the comments. And I have a feeling you might be able to do that as a PDF, which could then be archived, but I need to look into it. As for the review stage, Felix and I did a little bit of chatting about that this morning, and out of the meeting yesterday came the idea that we need to kind of pull them together and kind of cluster them. So there's a document floating around, which when we get on to the second half of the meeting, practically, I'm going to add that to this. But if you want, we could add it now. And there's also a dework task that Felix has created to invite people to add to that document and help with clustering and grouping comments and making sense of them. And then each cluster is going to become a dework task. And the person who takes ownership of that dework task will manage how we proceed with that issue. Like, does it need a meeting? Does it need some sort of a community conversation with 2 or 3 people? Does it need a Google form for people to vote, or what? So it's up to the person who owns the dework task. And in terms of producing a 2-page concise version, that is a separate dework task, which I think Felix has created as well. So I just need to find those links and add them in. But that's where we're at with it, I think.
That's a separate task to produce concise version.
Exactly. And creating the wrap-up, let's say a more summarized format, this goes parallel to the other steps which Vanessa just mentioned.
Okay. If you could paste it in that comment, Vanessa.
Just doing it, yeah.
Yeah, that. And then I'll leave these open because this is all to be done.
Yes, exact.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to record on this? No, okay.
I think that's all.
Good. Okay, I'll move on. Okay, the next item is archival workflow design, and this is allocated or assigned to Vanessa, and the subject is to design and document a workflow for archiving and updating content. So any comments, or I'll put that over to you, Vanessa.
Not really, but I think that when we get onto the practical part of the meeting, people will see kind of what the archival workflow currently is and where there might be gaps, and how it would be good to firm it up and just clarify a few things. So hopefully we will be able to add to exactly what the tasks are after the end of this meeting. That's all to say, really.
And that's note. I can carry on. But by the way, the due dates here I'm putting for the end of our quarterly budget. We've set up a milestone for ourselves that we've assumed that our budget is only going to go to the end of June. So all our budget estimates are worked out on that basis, and that's also that's why you have a lot of deadlines in the end of June. Okay, I'll move on to the next item, which is Colab Development. And this is the first of our development tasks that's assigned to me. And the way I'm doing this task is to any development I've done, I'm tracking in issues in the development repository. This is big, so I don't fill up the board here with a lot of technical data, like, for example, revoking an API keys or, technical details too much. But if you're curious about the technical details, you can click on these issues and follow what's been closed there. To date, there's a repository set up for this development, and this is just the beginning. And all that's been done is to, as a kind of proof of concept, is to set up a Colab notebook. A Colab notebook is Google's version of a Jupyter notebook, which is an online way of parsing Python code. And the first example I did was to connect to LangChain and the OpenAI model, and to do a test, open up the API and to put in a test question. So I just put in what is singularity there. It came in with a response, and that response is from the OpenAI GPT stock response. So that's what's been done. What will happen next is I will do the same, but I will feed in a GitBook corpus. So LangChain can feed in corpus from different sources, and that can be like a GitHub repository, a PDF document, text format, Google document, so I'm going to feed it one of our GitBooks. And I'll document, once I've done that, I'll document that, and they can form the basis of educational materials. But also, if anyone wants to participate in this, DM me or post on our Discord. And if there's any questions on this. No, okay. Andre, we are going to, I haven't set up an issue because this is the Python element of our development. I know we are considering a JavaScript element, but I haven't set up an issue for that.
Yeah. I'm waiting for one. I'm getting really close to closing one project. As soon as that project is closed, then I'm gonna start work on this, on a JavaScript and LangChain, and start playing around with that.
Okay. Shall I open the issue for that only when you're ready? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You don't have to do that now. Yeah. When I'll let you know when I'm ready.
Okay. And just so people know, we are planning to start JavaScript development as well. Tommy, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Question. Will this information, this GitBook, and I guess in alignment with the GitBook that Peter and Rojo started a year ago, can this be used in any way for onboarding new ambassadors, for them to, go through, summarize information and get caught up to speed?
For using GitBook, yeah, that is definitely a possibility, and that's something maybe Vanessa could cover in the hands-on part of the meeting.
Yeah, we can certainly talk about it then, but Tommy, yeah, it's definitely an intention that would be something that it would be useful for. And I think also, the other GitBook, the sort of ambassadors GitBook rather than the archive. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that's cool. And I think Sukrin, somehow we're gonna have to bring Sukrin in, since she's running the onboarding workshop or guild or work group. And I don't think they've had a meeting for a while, but she should be brought in somehow on this.
Yeah, for sure. And it occurs to me that when we were listing who's responsible for which work group, because they haven't met, we didn't list that. So I should list that. I'll add it.
I'm putting a note here on the next item, which is the archive GitBook for going forward, Vanessa. So
Fab.
on Archive, I'll put that there for the moment, so it's not lost. But this is where we would be recording the work done on the archive GitBook for June for going forward. So that's, you know, there's nothing there at the moment because we're not in June, but we, you know, I'll leave that note there. There's any questions on that? Okay, the next item is a large language model to create archival finding age, and this is assigned to all the core team. I can just briefly recap what's been done so far. I've recorded, GitBook has a feature called Lens, which if you see this is the GitBook, and then if you click on the search function here, you will have a search option where you can search for, you know, keywords, which is actually quite useful. And then you can click on a lens option, which will is interfaced with a ChatGPT OpenAI backend. And this, what I've been doing intermittently is to test this to see, like, for example, like what is the purpose of the, you know, to see what sort of responses it comes back through different GitBooks. Not sure if that's going to answer it here because it's trying to get to the, so it may take some time, so I might just give it a few more seconds, and there you go. So the responses will be variable depending on the content that we're feeding it. So, I mean, there's an example there, but I have been also documenting the responses in this discussion thread here. It takes a while to come up. So what I've been doing is taking different GitBooks and then asking it different questions on different dates. So obviously the earlier dates would have less information. And to see if there's any differences between the different GitBooks, for example, the Ambassadors GitBook and the Archive GitBook, to queries from a large language model. And I've just documented what the responses have been. And that's all that's been happened. So I'm not sure if the rest of the team, like Andre, Vanessa, or Mira, you have any thoughts, or anyone actually has any thoughts on whether that's the right way to proceed or any other ideas.
I mean, one thing I would say is I've used a bit of archival jargon, so maybe I should explain what we mean by archival finding aids. It's not just a search function. I mean, when we collect this kind of data that we are collecting at the moment, what we have is record keeping. To make it become an archive, we need to have some sort of organization of it. We often need to catalog it. We might use various different taxonomies to organize it. And then archival finding aids help you find not just the object, but the metadata as well. So this can be quite an interesting community exercise, is deciding what the meaning of the material that's in the archive actually is. Because, you know, in the end, it's the community that owns this archive, so the community determines what it means, and we do that with taxonomies and with cataloging. So I have a feeling that LLMs could be used really effectively to work with archival finding aids, and it's something that the kind of archives world is interested in but hasn't done that much of. People are aware of AI in the conventional archiving world, but I think it'd be really cool if this project could lead to something that we could actually demo and say, look, this is a thing that we found, and maybe our archive is not organized like a conventional one, but this tooling could be adaptable. to all kinds of archives. So yeah, it's just throwing it in there as something that maybe we would develop.
I think that's great. I'm definitely gonna keep that in mind when we start working on that JavaScript. So I'm definitely gonna ask you more about that.
Okay, so any other feedback from people or any thoughts about
Tommy, you've got your hand up.
Sorry, from before. My bad.
Okay.
that? That's okay.
I would just like to stress out this is, I think, really, really, really important to definitely have a lot of attention and love to it. Because I think this really, one problem what we can see very often in communities is that over time it generates a lot of history, a lot of knowledge, though over time it gets almost impossible to find an easy access to it and to navigate simply through their own let's say through their own data which we create every day. I think it's really, really important here. And Stephen just wondered as well, because you use OpenAPI
Yeah.
accesses. Okay, that's interesting. First for the for the LLM which we built now for just launched it also on the Swarm test server today. Which we developed with Mesh.js, the LLM with the bot interface via Discord.
Mesh.js, yeah, go on.
Yeah, Mesh.js AI. I think we should definitely see as well that we can make them somehow compatible to each other, so that we have our, let's say, data structures which can communicate to each other, for example.
Yeah.
And I think with this really feeding the LLMs as much as possible, I think the first real, let's say, use case we can develop of this is really Q&A, right? Onboarding people, so that we know, for example, okay, your GitBook lens has access also to the LLM which we develop, and vice versa. And the LLM, well, with the the Mesh AI, I think this Discord is configured as a really simple Discord bot. So main idea is to throw it really over time on a bunch of Discords actually.
Yeah.
And really start to build very focused, very specialized knowledge, which is very often lacking, for example, let's say from GPT-3 or 4 or whatnot.
So the mesh side use case is a Discord Q&A mainly, but there's a kind of crossover. So we need to compare notes really, Felix, don't we, on that? So on the data structure, particularly for the LLMs. I'll put a note of that. And yeah, I mean, maybe offline, if you can keep an eye, if you have any actionable items here, Felix, that I can add, then we could do that asynchronously, But I think you're right. So you need to. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but if you could think about an action item I can add here to say, look at, for example, Mesh AI's data structure, and to see if we can. It may actually be more appropriate to do that in the Colab Development one, because the Colab Development issue is more customizable. The LLM here, I should probably put, this is the GitBook. That's the GitBook Lens LLM, yeah. And the GitBook Lens LLM is like a black box. We can only use the beta that GitBook are providing us with. But the Colab development will allow us to build whatever we want, so maybe more appropriate to do. But we can discuss that asynchronously if you like, Felix.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thanks. And the final item is the Ambassadors GitBook, which is assigned to the core team. And this is going forward. It's kind of what I did with the Ambassadors GitBook is I took what Peter did originally. There's the link to it there. And I haven't really changed what I found. So it's really as it was created. So the tasks there are to review it for accuracy and timeliness of content. And I suppose it's linked, there's a relevance here, Tommy, for onboarding and for introduction, because it's like a handbook to the ambassadors. Make sure it's linked in the Discord starting channel, and to implement a workflow to keep it up to date. And that's, so Vanessa, do you want to speak on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say, how are we viewing this archivally? Are we seeing it as, do we want it to be a current version that people see? Or do we want it to have some kind of an archival, this is what the ambassadors program started out as, and now it's changed to this? Because I just feel that is probably a bit of a barrier for people. What we want is something that is current, isn't it?
That's my understanding.
So where do we collate? Do we want to collate any history of what the ambassadors program was in the past?
Well, beyond, well, as it's on GitHub, it will have a version control.
Yeah.
But it won't be archived as such. It's, you know, unless, do you think there's value in that?
I don't know. I think it might be because it's such a central program for SNet. It feels like maybe having some recognition of how it's changed and how it's developed might be useful. I think we discussed this came up a little bit in Process Guild about last night, about how we sometimes don't necessarily record decisions and how things have changed and why they've changed and that kind of thing. And I think it also came up in the governance document. There was questions about how we keep track of the reasons that things have changed. So I don't know, it just feels like something that maybe it could be a section of the ambassador's GitBook. Could be a kind of, it could even be narrative, and we could even, you know, use ChatGPT to create some kind of a narrative text about what it used to be and how it's changed, that is periodically updated. I don't know what people think about that.
Any thoughts, Peter or anyone else?
I wouldn't mind if there's like periodical snapshotting or like a state of the GitBook, but broadly speaking, I'm more worried about, or more, not worried, but more interested in having it being proper and up to date rather than archiving it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That should take priority.
Yeah.
Well, this is why we're the archive group. I guess we have different priorities than a lot of people would. No, I'm not trying to be arsey, but it's just like, having worked in archives for a long time, I realise how often people go, nah, you don't need that. And then 3 months down the line, they'll go, shit, I wish we had that. So, yeah.
But go on, Peter.
I just
Andre, sorry.
Yeah, every time you make updates, maybe just send a message with that update, like a short description of what you changed. And then we can always go back and collect all those messages and display that in a way that would make sense. If someone wants to.
Yeah, it just feels it's not very accessible. If it's like links to, oh, here's this bit of the thing and I change this. I think what we maybe need is something more narrative, so that people who want to understand the history of the ambassadors program can do so.
I just have to say, it kind of supports essentially what Peter was saying a little bit, because the main point of the ambassadors GitBook was to be like a handbook that would be useful for people, so it's like up to date. Would you say, Peter?
Yeah, true. I think on narrative side, like you can add comments to pull requests and merges. So in my mind, that could fit there. And yeah, if people are indeed interested in the history of the GitBook itself, like that's separate to me than the history of the ambassador program.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not really talking about the history of the GitBook.
I found it interesting that one of the questions that Stephen put up is, what is the ambassador program? And LLM said, well, it's not definite stated or whatever. Hopefully in 6 months, if you ask that question again, it has a different version. And that type of versioning would be, I think, interesting for history.
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason why we're doing it as well. So, I mean, yeah, sometimes it's difficult to disentangle some of the things we're doing. I mean, some of the things we're doing are for archiving. Some of them are for training the large language model, but then there's also like sort of the pragmatic thing of just providing information to people. So I suppose the ambassador's GitBook, that's how I see it, is mostly about being up to date. I know that's not the only thing, Vanessa, but do you want to comment on that more? Or?
No, I think I'm overruled, but it's fine. I'm just
I'm
like,
not overruling you. It just it's
I'm just gonna, let's just write, you'll regret it. No, I'm kidding. No, seriously. It just might be interesting to look at maybe if there's ways that we can use AI tools to derive some sort of like narrative of what has changed, because I think it is something we've been identifying in meetings as something that we maybe need to do a bit more, is to look at the decisions that are made, the changes that are made, and have some kind of oversight of why they were changed and what effect it had and when they were changed. And I think while I take people's points about like, making a comment whenever you make a change and comment on mergers and pull requests and stuff, it just feels like it's not accessible and it's not something anybody's going to really read. So maybe there's ways that we can pull that information out and make it usable.
okay.
But yeah, it's not a priority.
Yeah, I'm just taking it as well. Sorry, I'm taking notes here as well, trying to keep up. So that's still open, and so there's still the next steps are still sort of valid, and that is for that comes under that work is mostly allocated to you, Vanessa, and to Andre and Miro, because it's under the archive work group budget. Is that? But I still, so I suppose you need to lead. Are you happy to do that? So.
Yeah, we've already,
Okay.
already.
Okay, we come to the end of that, and that was under the hour, so so that was quite good, and I can hand it over to your part of the session, Vanessa. Do you want to share the screen yourself, or should I stop sharing?
Yeah, go on then. Yeah, if you stop sharing and just give me a sec. And all right. All right, so I thought I'd start off just by showing people what you've probably already seen, that there are 3 little different GitBooks. We've seen the archive one. There's a governance one. Not a lot in it yet, but there will be. And the ambassadors one. So what we're going to probably focus on most in these meetings is the actual archive itself. So yeah, let me just 1 second and let me just sort myself out. One thing that I did think was might be quite useful, but I think probably everybody in this meeting is familiar, but just in case anybody isn't who is watching the video, we can maybe put this in the documentation, is GitBooks itself has a nice little navigation tool, which I've just put in the chat, which people might find handy if they're like not sure how to approach it and where to start. But what we've got is it's arranged, the main archive is arranged appropriately enough as a timeline. So all the 2022 stuff is in there, 2023 is in here, and you can see that the way Stephen has created it is monthly, and then when you go into a month, it's like calendar weeks. So you can see what was done in a week. Let's look at week 21. And do people want to jump in here? And like, you can actually have, I think everybody here today has edit rights already, don't they?
I think some people will have edit rights and some people won't. But as Peter says, you could ping Peter for edit rights.
That's true. But yeah, what I'd like to invite everybody to jump in while we're working, because we're going to try and work practically. So let me put a link again in the chat. Okay, so there we are. And that is May, week 21. So we can see that we've got it day by day, and you can see under each day there are the meetings that happened on that day, fairly obviously. First thing I think we probably need to do is work out what we're going to do if a meeting doesn't happen, because what we're doing is we're just entering all of the meetings, but obviously some of them are fortnightly, so we might need to say, well, that didn't happen this week. So anybody who's in, oh, there's something in the chat, wait up. Okay.
No, I mean, I think just telling people if they need access.
Okay. So who is actually in and got access? I can see a couple of people. I can see Stephen's in, Miro, you're in, PC, you're in. All right, so translator support workshop didn't happen this week, am I right?
I think it did.
Oh, okay. So we're still waiting for their documentation. That's useful.
Yeah, that was what they're just placeholders. If they're in there,
yeah, I know that.
If they're in there, they have taken place.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. So everything that's in there definitely took place. So that was my question, is how do we deal with things that didn't? But that's answered, is we just take it out and don't have anything at all. I was thinking that maybe we should have a note that says, let's say, for example, Education Guild had been cancelled this week. Maybe we should add a note to say this didn't take place, in case people were looking for it, because I think it's puzzling if you're expecting to see it and it's not there at all. What do people think? Would that be valid? Oh, come on, people. This is hopeless. If I can't hear you.
Yeah, I think that's valid. It's like this podcast. I'm sorry, I'm sitting outside now. Yeah, I think that's valid. But let me ask you a question now. Are you getting the information on the meetings from the notes in DWork or from the specific notes in meeting notes?
Oh, we'll come on to that in a minute. I'm purely now trying to say how we decide what meetings appear in the list. We're mainly getting it from what people send us. So. But okay, I'm gonna minute that then as if a meeting doesn't happen, we include it in the list and note that it didn't happen. So moving on, we can see an example here of the governance work group that happened yesterday, and there's quite a lot of material in there. And I'm just going to move to Discord, and you can see there's a channel here called Meeting Summaries. It's under the Ambassador Programme and Meeting Summaries. And this is where people at the moment, we did try doing it in a Dropbox, in a Google Drive, but that wasn't very consistent. And this seems to be working better, that when somebody has a meeting, they post with the title of the meeting, the date of it, and then whatever material they have. So that feels like it's working quite well. Is that something that people feel is okay?
What's the turnaround time that you're looking for in getting that information?
By the end, I mean, I think within the week that it happens is good, but obviously that penalizes people who have a meeting on a Friday, doesn't it? I don't know if we want to impose a turnaround time at the moment. I think we maybe want to see what people can do and how it's working. Do you have a thought about what the turnaround time should be?
Well, no, I'm a procrastinator, so sometimes I'm not good at the paperwork, so to speak. But I was just, I work on deadline. So if you give a deadline and say, hey, it should be done within a week or by the end of the month, by the end of the quarter, whatever it is, that's how I work. But that's not necessarily how everybody else works. I see some people are very, very efficient and they have it right at the end of the meeting, which is probably the best way to do it.
I mean, I think we can look, when we're trying to derive a workflow, we can try and look at learning from people who do it quite snappily. And, they have little things that they do that help them do that. So maybe that's important. But I hear what you're saying about give people a deadline and they're more likely to conform to it. So I would say better to do it sooner, because you forget what happened and there's no, you're only going to lose recall of it. You're not going to gain recall by leaving it for 2 weeks or 2 months. So I think, within a week of the meeting feels right to me. Does anybody have like, oh my God, no, we can't possibly say that to people? But...
Right, but let me play devil's advocate now. Since we're paying for Read AI, why do we need human notes at all if we can start each meeting with the who, what, when, where, why questions?
I think because there has been some conversation about maybe not every meeting feels that they want to have Read AI enabled, particularly not video recordings. So that we may end up saying, no, sorry, you have to. But it feels to me like that it might not be appropriate for every meeting. So we need to derive, this is what I was saying earlier about wanting to go to people and say, what do you feel that you need to do in terms of documentation, and see how that fits with what we need. Because, if somebody says like, we don't want to record our meetings, thanks, we don't want Read AI doing it, people, it's a barrier for people, they don't want to be on camera, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the reason, then we need to derive a process where they can collect minimal information. So whether that is keywords or whether it's notes or whatever it might be. Yeah.
I think what would make a lot of sense is actually figuring out what different tools we have also, where, for example, right now I see two existing tools and one upcoming tool. One's the Lens and GitBook by Archival Workgroup. Then we have Read AI, and then we have the Discord LLM as well.
Yeah.
Right now we create outputs for our calls, and though none of them are really, let's say, configured that they feed the best into the tools which we actually want to use to, like what you said a little bit, Hedef, right? We use these tools already, why not making proper use of it? I think Vanessa's approach was mostly defining which is the format a little bit, or let's say different templates which we can use, where we can see, okay, what works actually, and and from my perspective, then would simply also decide to, when we define templates or nice processes that we identify, for example, best lessons, really looking to adjust them in a format so that we know, hey, the format which we generate is easily consumable by, let's say, the different AIs we start to work with right now. So make sure that they actually can digest them as smooth as possible. And we create actually not only output, but directly new input as well.
Very good point.
Just to get some background on this, the reason why the meeting summary channel was started in the first place was partly from your input, Tommy, and it was so that we, and it was also about discussions. I think I can't remember in what work group, but about standardization of agendas and summaries of what each of the work group does. And that was part of your initiative as well. So this is about consistency and also not forgetting things. So and this is maybe why we need archiving as well, is so that things don't get forgotten. And what was agreed, although agreed in our environment is a moot point, is a meeting summary Discord channel to be set up, and then the ambassadors did agree to put their summaries of their meetings in there. So that wasn't the archive work group that did that. That was other work groups. So you're using that as a source. Okay, now that source is being used, or it's being used inconsistently. So some people are posting in there, and I won't name names, but some people are not, you know. So, and I would suggest that if ambassadors do commit to do something, they do it. You know, otherwise, what's the point?
I mean, I think this might be part of the workflow process. I mean, one thing that we have got, which I mean, certainly you've been doing, but I haven't been consistently doing, is once, say like here, Felix has posted the governance work group and you've replied with a link to where it is so that we go, yes, this is ticked off. But, you know, we need to make sure that that does happen, and when Miro and Andre and I are doing it, that we do that too. So this is all part of the workflow. But yeah, I think it does need to be done consistently, and it's just a matter of making sure that people are happy with it. So I'm going to be trying to find out if anybody's got a kind of, oh, I really hate doing this because, and then maybe we can try and fix it. But yeah, it is important.
Yeah, I'm probably one of the offenders, as Stephen stated kindly. But we did agree to do it, and I did create the form to do it. But that was before we had Read AI, and I'm even thinking it's before we really started using Zoom regularly. So procedures have changed, processes have changed, and funny, Peter. But you know, we need to adapt with them. So that's why I asked if we can just use the Read AI. And you know, in best practices, if we can cut out a step that, as you admit, is not working quite properly. If we can cut it out and take the human factor out of it, it may be better for archival.
So you mean that we would take the meeting documentation direct from Read AI?
Correct. I mean, you know, some people may not like it, and there's certain meetings for privacy or sensitive issues may get Read AI cut off. But if we train the ambassadors in each meeting, you say, hey, this is Tom Frey, and you know, it's the 17th of May, and the meeting is on strategy, and the following people are in the room, and
Yeah,
the
sure.
agenda is going.
I'm just trying to find out if you're saying that the archive group should take the documentation direct from Read AI without any posting in Discord. Is that what you're saying?
That's my suggestion from just a quick best practices. Yes.
Can I just I mean, have you looked at the Read AI output, Tommy?
Oh, come on, Stephen. You know, in a month or two, I'll get around to it. I told you I'm a procrastinator.
No, you're suggesting the
I have not read it.
You're suggesting the use of a tool that you haven't looked at.
That is correct.
Okay.
Because I have to say, I don't feel it's hugely practical, but I mean, I hear you when you say that you think the Discord process is not working, but maybe if we publicized it a little bit more and got a little bit more input from people about any blockers that they're finding, and we try, you know, because these things, you know, they are slow. It takes a little bit of time for everybody to know, yeah, this is what I need to do, this is my process. So I don't know.
To be honest,
I feel like we should give it a go for a little bit longer myself, but I don't know.
Much agree, because to be honest, the Discord thing is actually, I think, is working pretty good actually. I like a lot, just quickly jumping on the channel when I haven't been in a meeting, just catch up on the notes with if there are. I think that's pretty awesome actually. And also I don't understand it that much that it's only for catching up, but only really having easy, let's say, streamlined information to Stephen and the GitBook, right? And on the Read AI, quite agree. The format is not really matching of, I would say, what we really need as summaries from the meetings. And I think once again, maybe it's worth to look in each of them, also look at how we can maybe, yeah.
I could do a quick screen share to show you what Read AI looks like, maybe.
No, I know. I looked already a lot on there. Though
no,
what is possible, I think we can model.
Yeah, if you want
for everyone, just so everyone can see what we're talking about. So
definitely.
Okay, so here, let me just open. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the reason I will automatically create these. I'll just take one at random here. So this is Education Guild. Now, if you see here, the summary, now at first sight, it may seem like a good summary, but it's not reliable. That's the problem. And if we were to use it as, for example, if the archive group were to use it as the single source, it would increase our workload because we would have to basically edit. We'd have to check that that is an accurate summary and edit it. There are some other things that we can find useful. For example, we can see who the attendees are. So that could be quite useful for some, you know, to see who's attended what meeting. And maybe for, as you say, Tommy, maybe if we get people to say a section of the meeting, you know, where we could train them, but I suppose it's like training people. You know, so you see the issue there?
I do see the issue, and my question then would be, why are we paying for Read AI? Is it just a belt and suspenders type situation?
No, it's a new tool, though we don't know yet exactly how to use the new tool. That's the main issue, I think. Nobody here yet spent significant amount of time in figuring out how we can actually, for example, you can model custom-made reports, right? You can set up new templates there. Yet nobody really spent significant time figuring out what exactly we can do with Read AI and how the best.
I mean, I think it's still a moot point, but I'm going to propose that we persevere a little longer with the post it in Discord approach, and then maybe review what, in a month? Does that seem reasonable? Cool.
Yeah. I mean, there could
Yeah,
be...
go to the end of the quarter is
Yeah,
a great
okay.
time frame.
Yeah.
All right, let's say that then. And I think, you know, if now that we have got an archives team and we can run around trying to encourage people and explain to people how and why to do it, it might be better. Just going to go back to that screen share then.
And
So yeah, this is
Vanessa.
yes.
One last point to the Discord updates. Actually, one thing what I really like on this is as well, it's a really easy identifiable responsibility for Workgroups lead, right?
Yes.
Workgroups now are funded, Workgroups lead. We don't know exactly what exactly they have to do, but that's, for example, one responsibility which I think is really nice actually, right? Workgroup leads have this is one of their responsibilities. Summarize your meeting at the end. Make sure everybody has an easy access to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is hopefully how it should work. Yeah. All right, so we did say that we'd try and be a bit practical in this meeting, so I'm just a little practical thing. If we look at the governance workgroup meeting and we notice, obviously Felix posted about it and we've got a certain amount of information of what happened in there, but because he posted it when he did, it doesn't include some of the things that came out of it. So I'm going to suggest, see where we have created D-work action for people to cluster, categorize comments and blah de blah. It would be useful to add a link. So if somebody who's in there, would you like to go in, edit and add that link at that point? Go for it.
Would love to, but I'm not on PC. Sorry.
Okay. Is anybody
I
able?
I see Andre or Mira.
So I should add that link.
Yeah, I've just posted that link in the chat, which is to the D-work task that is being talked about there.
Okay.
And while Andre's doing that, this raises an issue, of course, in terms of our archival workflow and practice. I know that that link is there because I was in the meeting, so I can find it and add it. But as far as possible, obviously, we want it to be pretty much a bang, bang, bang task. We take what is in the Discord meeting at the Discord channel, bang it into the GitBook without having to go looking for things that we might know. So I think my feeling is that if, as the archive group, we do happen to know things, then we add them. But I think maybe we should, back to Tommy's point about how soon do people put things up, it might be also partly about how not soon. In other words, if there are tasks that are likely to be done a day or 2 days after the meeting, maybe people should wait until they've got all the information before they post it for us. What do people think about that?
Maybe we don't have to relate to specific tasks, but on the GitBook in general, let's say, for example, agenda item is from a specific workgroup. Each workgroup or guild usually has a dworkspace as well, which has their own URL link. So each time we just add the link to that dworkspace at general, where you see, okay, this is space of archival workgroup, this space of what
good.
workgroup. And it's just a short hint, like catch up on any tasks there because they are always timely added, let's say, to the reports then actually as well, right?
Yeah, that's quite a cool approach to it. Yeah, nice one. Okay. So the next thing I just wanted to look at is we can see that there is still one meeting to do for this week, which is for yesterday, which is, I mean, obviously these haven't been added. Ambassadors Workgroup and Ambassador Town Hall haven't been added to Discord yet, but there's one on Discord that has, and that's Process Guild. So I wondered if, Stephen, if I unshare in a minute, you could walk us through and we could actually do the process. If you look here, you can see what TiVo has added. There's meeting notes, and that's in the form of a Miro. And then there's agenda items and next steps. So would that be all right, Stephen, if you actually run through doing it so people can see the work?
Yeah, I can do that. I just want to say for town halls, I've been just waiting for the video to be uploaded to YouTube and then to copy the slides that Peter produces. But
yeah,
so that's the only exception that we have to, unless you want to start posting in there as well, Peter. But
I mean, what I was just going to say in reply to Peter's comment in the chat is what I'd be inclined to want to archive from a town hall is just the slides. So if we could have a link to the slides posted in Discord, then bang, we're done.
yeah, I think that's already in the YouTube, underneath the YouTube thing. So.
How do you mean?
most of them they are, but if needed, I have all of them. Some of them, I have to be honest, like one or two, I instead of making a copy first, I simply change them, so they're lost, I guess.
Well, you know, no archive is perfect. But what I'm saying is that just having the YouTube is not enough because often there is a link in a slide.
Yeah, fair. And I guess what makes sense on the town halls, like the first section where all work groups are providing more or less their own summary of the past week, that would make it really substantial and not really a summary. But if there's open topics after that, that should be included, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think also just the process of posting something in the Discord thread, and then we can say, yes, got it, it's done. Some of this is going to become part of our workflow to make sure we haven't missed anything. So that feels like it might be useful.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, well, do you want me to carry on?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to cheat a bit, but okay. So there's the TiVo's post. Some of the information I've already got in the placeholder, so I'm just going to copy it from the context down, and I'm going to paste it into a text editor, which is going to retain some of the spacing. So what I found is, and this may be a problem, if you just cut and paste it directly into the GitBook, it concatenates it all together. Where if you do it this way, it doesn't. So I'll go to the section of the GitBook, which is Process Guild in this case. Click on the edit button. And then I'll go underneath where TiVo section is. I'll put it as a paragraph and then paste in. That's what it looks like as a raw pasting. And then I can format this. So what I tend to do is just to create the different sections here so they're more readable. I might refer back to how TiVo has done it himself, so like the agenda items and so on. And this can be a bit fiddly. I won't do it all now, but so for example, he has the decision items separated out, so I'm separating those out by spacing them. So you see there's a little bit of work to be done there.
Stephen, what we can see on your screen is still Discord. Are you in a different window?
Yeah.
You might have to unshare and reshare so we can see.
Oh dear. Okay, let's try again. Oh, there's someone else. I'll just admit the other fries as well. Okay, let's see if I can do that again. Maybe it's a different window. Okay, can you see this new thing, which is a GitBook?
Yeah.
Hey! Well, by magic, I've pasted in some of TiVo's content. And like I was saying, there's some formatting issues, so which can be a bit annoying. But they needs to be reformatted. So here, for example, I need to separate out the actions. Then what I would do, I won't complete it all. I would just tidy it out by giving them the headings on different things. This is so when I merge it, I can link to different sections here, and then I might, just for the aesthetics, might make some of these bold so they're more easily readable. Some things like this may not work actually. Some things like mirror links can expand. Yes, this will work. Okay. So if you just put your cursor after the link, it'll expand the link out. This isn't complete, but at any point, if I want to save my work, I can merge it in. If we're putting changes in together as a team, though, there may be, because I have admin rights, I don't have to go through a change request process, but we can implement that. So if we have editors, for example, we could arrange it so editors submit content and then put it in as a change request. So going to the actual GitBook, if I refresh the GitBook, and it should reflect the changes. If I might have to refresh the page. Let's see, I can't remember. Well, yeah, there's Process Guild. So, and do you want me to go through the process of archiving the mirror board itself?
I think it'd be cool for people to see what we have to do. Yeah, this is part of the process that really at the moment only Stephen can do, because we don't want too many people having to have access to TiVo's massive Miro board. So,
yeah, I mean, this may take some time, so we'll see. I'll only do this if we can.
Yeah. But just to say that for the rest of us, if we get to archiving a meeting that's got a Miro, just leave a space for it, and then we'll have to work that into the workflow, how we alert Stephen that this needs to be done for this meeting, or maybe he'll just see it anyway, and then he'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem may not, because sometimes there are performance issues with. I'll try once more. No, it's not really.
I mean, maybe then we just
and it's a meeting, so it's not going to work because it's a meeting. Let's try
well,
this
tell
one.
You what, show. Oh yeah, you're
one.
doing it.
It's a different one. Okay. Again, it takes. I mean, we may talk to TiVo about changing the process for this.
Yeah.
The reason why only I can do it is because it requires access to creating a frame for each. Well, the way the TiVo has set up the records of meetings is through a frame system. So it creates a frame for each meeting, like the governance work group or whatever. This may take time to render because it's all on one big board. So what this presented a challenge to us archivally, because TiVo's produced a very valuable record of all the meetings that have been done in the past year, which is good. The bad news is that it's very hard to, that is not discoverable outside of a Miro board. And to actually begin to do that, I can click on a particular frame, or I have to click on a particular frame. This is a bit slow. Not sure if it's how. Well, I click on a particular frame and I create a new frame over it. I duplicate the frame and then sure it's yeah, it might be best if I do a video of this because it's just too slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I click on the frame, I wait. The problem why it takes so long is because the whole Miro board has to load. When I click on that frame, I then can duplicate the frame and then save that as an image, a high resolution image, and then also as a vector diagram as well. Why would I want to save it as a vector diagram? If I save it as a vector diagram, it means I can then zoom into it. So basically I have like a little mini Miro board. Miro.
Yes, my question is actually, I see that we have everything documented from week 15 till week 21st.
Yeah.
And where we can find some info about weeks before week 14 or week 14 also.
That's the work
From where we will actually pull out the data and put everything in the GitBook.
Okay. Well, the backlog is assigned to me, and the approach I'm taking is, first of all, to document all the town halls. So is to go back and because they're easily findable on YouTube, and there will often, as Peter's helpfully done, you know, I know that's not completely consistent, but a lot of the times there will be a slide agenda with them. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, and that is already quite a lot of work because it's all the town halls going back over a year, you know, and I'll populate those into the week numbers. Then I'm going to check TiVo's Miro board and go through each of the frames and archive each frame, essentially, which is actually quicker than once it's all loaded up. It's actually quicker than I showed it, so I can, you know, it takes about 5 or 10 minutes per frame. But you know, even taking 5 or 10 minutes per frame, if you imagine all the meetings that have been documented, that's still quite a lot of time. So yeah, that's the intention. Is that helpful, Vanessa?
Me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, Miro. Sorry, I was handing it back.
Yeah, sorry, I see. Yeah, I feel like we're kind of coming to the end of what we planned to do in this session, so we're a little bit ahead of time, which is great. But what I'd like to propose is that, I don't know what people think of this, for the next session, if each of us in the core group maybe hold off from documenting a meeting from the week between now and then and actually do it live in the meeting, and then if issues come up and questions come up, people who are here can help us work through them. Does that sound like something that people would be interested in?
Cool. But can we also, like for homework, try to add something and play with data from Miro board and from YouTube, and just, you know, to try to figure out what is good to put in the, for example, we can see what Steven actually start, and then maybe to try and play with
Yeah.
data and put it there. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. And I think what we're trying to look at also is that it's what I raised earlier with that little link that I asked Andre to put in. How much do we, as the archives group, go looking? And how much do we simply go by what has been posted in Discord? For me, this is the core question around a kind of workflow. And I don't know, I think I do see advantages to us kind of adding in stuff that we do know. And eventually I see advantages to the whole community being able to add in stuff that they do know and that maybe wasn't in the original post. But it can be hard to manage and it can be an absolute shit show. So maybe I shouldn't even suggest it. But yeah, let's work through before we come to the meeting, us four, and just have an idea of any issues that might come up. And then we can do it live with people. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming, everybody. And yeah, let's see everyone in 2 weeks, same time.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot for hosting. Very insightful.
Yeah, 7th of June. Yeah.
Make sure to add it to the calendar, because if it's not on the calendar,
Oh, it is. It's on the
It's-
calendar. I hope it's on the calendar.
Yeah, it should be automatically. I booked up the Zoom, the Singularity Net Zoom and the calendar. So it should be repeating automatically, Peter.
I'm going to check now while we're all here. Let me
Oh my God.
just see if it's worked. 7th of June. Oh no, I'm still looking at May. All right, 7th of June. Is it there? No, it's not.
So we also had it for
No, it's not.
they added the Singularity Ambassadors account, but that doesn't automatically make it for everybody subscribed to that calendar.
What do we need to do then to get it to repeat fortnightly?
I can.
Do we have to add
Set
them
it-
manually or?
I can set it up for you if you want.
Nice one. Yeah,
That'd be really
I think you
helpful,
thought.
Felix.
Yeah, thank you, Felix. That'd be brilliant. All right. Meeting closed. Right. Let me try and type that command to get read AI.
Oh, actually, please don't.
All right.
Because Tefo did notice that exactly the 2 meetings where both me and him did this, these notes were not available on Read AI. So
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to
Worth knowing.
completely get rid of the notes.
I'm gonna stop manual recording. This isn't Read AI recording. I'm gonna stop
Yeah.
manual recording. Hopefully this won't kick everyone out.